Hey traders, Avan here, Mike Sas commentator at Global Prime Brokerage Firm. As you may know, I've been running my mentorship room for a while, and even though I'm not the type of person that is going to be posting results every single week, I also recognize that for those that are yet to find out about my service, there is nothing that beats marketing, nothing that beats really putting your content out there, sticking your neck out. And essentially that's what I've been doing through my mentor room. I've been sticking my neck out, I've been talking the walk, and now people are starting to really reap the benefits in the crypto market. Crypto market, as you know, is where all the opportunities and volatility is present at the moment. It beats Forex, it beats traditional assets tenfold around this time of the year. It is been absolutely insane. So before I get into the charts and we get to cover some of the pristine entries, I want to first provide some type of proof so that you are really in tune with what's been going on, some of the highlights of what's been going on in the room. So here, first one, Terry, my right hand man, he's been up 7.33% in BTC terms. That is the most important part of it. We are always aiming to stack more and more Bitcoins as our unit of account. 14.79%, that is his benefits, his profit in US dollar terms. So really great performance by Terry. Here is a comment of mine where I was warning the room that we had an impending movement in ADA, Cardano, ahead of what eventually proved to be a huge vertical movement to the upside and still ongoing. Now Atom has been blowing it out of the park as of late, and I was calling for that trade right ahead of what happened. Remember, one thing is that the crypto space has been pumping. Actually, if you think about it and you scan through all the top 200, it's not that all have been pumping up against Bitcoin. I would say it's more like a 25 to 30% of all the assets. We have been very well timed in the majority of the entries, and Atom is one more proof of that. Then here myself, late last week, up 4.32% in BTC terms, only within 24 hours alone. Okay, so that is just to show how much you can accomplish with this strategy that we are applying through the room, the strategy that I am promoting. Neo on a tear and Terry reaping the benefits, have profit taken off the table. When it comes to other calls that I've made, Zen, Atom, and XMR, remember Monero has been also reaping to the upside, and gosh, what a trade that was in CTSI. I was here just encouraging and celebrating the result of the CTS trade by one of our members, Matt, as well. Now we got here, what else? Nothing else. Zen and Atom, I've already covered that one. T-Fuel, this is one of the few that has not played out, and the important thing about it is that whenever we see that the trade does not go, fairly immediately in our favor, we cut the exposure and then move on to newer pastures. And that's about it. So let's get into some of the trades that we call as of late. Remember, this is Cardano, the first one that I want to cover, against BTC, which is all that matters here. We want to gain exposure as long as our BTC can keep increasing. Now, I was calling for 3 targets here, okay? 3 targets in particular. Let me see if I can find that in our room. Here you go. Find below in red horizontal lines the levels I'm targeting in ADA BTC. This was sent May the 5th. Fast forward, we've met that first red target, second one, and to the tick, the third one. 3 targets met and all the profits collected. Okay, so at a BTC, this was an entry that came out of, let me just move this guy a little bit and I'll show you where the entry was. So essentially we have a system that is going to be spotting the most pristine trends, and we want to do that ahead of the volatility explosion. So we had an entry right here. Let's see if I can zoom in the chart and I'll show you in detail where that entry was. So notice here that ADA had broken this key resistance. We had a first test. We came back again. It looks like here we had a period of accumulation, and right there within this candle, within these confinements, we enter long, and we were expecting for this volatility, cyclicality to get into a new spike, and that's what we've seen. And ever since, now it is a suboptimal time to get into further exposure in ETH. Why? Because the volatility is already getting out of hand, out of whack, if you will, and we have, as I said, been exposed in a very major manner, ADA BTC. Let's see if we can get other trades that you understand properly the logic behind. Next is Cosmos. So Cosmos, here we had a clean breakout of a structure, and I gotta say that we got into this trade ahead of the structure breakout. So I want to point out the candle that eventually led to the move higher, and it's this one right here. So you will notice that this candle had all the components that we always look for. We had an increase in volume. There you go. That's the increase in volume. We got structures and momentum in multiple time frames that we monitor, all in green, and we had cleared that area of resistance left behind. Next up, let's look at BCH against BTC. This is a trade that was once again in line with structure momentum surpassing support and resistance. Volume was behind, and we had a low volatility environment. Therefore, we could be expecting that the next wave of expansionary volatility was just about to come around the corner, and this is essentially what transpired. BCH, I think that the candle that we enter, if I'm not mistaken, it was either this one or that one. We really reaped the benefits here. Notice that the volume, it's right here. Okay, I can confirm it was right there because that's where the volume started to pick up. So we're talking about this candle rejecting the previous resistance turn support. This is what we call it a role reversal level, and eventually we had this ripper of a movement. Okay, so BCH BTC was a phenomenal trade. Now CAKE-BTC, it's been trading water for a number of weeks, and that's why I'm saying that this strategy really times super well. When is it that it's time to take the plunge and enter a trade? You could argue, oh, just because the alt season has been with us for a number of weeks, we could just be speculating in any project. No, that is wrong. You really need to find the strategy that is going to be timing your entries to the best, to get the best possible results in the fastest possible time, and that is what our method, that's what's the one that I'm promoting as part of the mentor room. Okay, so CAKE-BTC, we had an entry where around this point, it was mid-April. So mid-April, notice that we had an initial breakout, but there was no volume. That was very much aggressively rejected, and then we saw buyers on that dip coming back. We had that turnaround on the trigger line at a time that, as depicted through the bottom indicator, all the components that we're going to be looking out for in terms of the structure, the momentum, the SR being left behind, price action itself, volatility being rather suppressed. We want to enter this type of locations when all the signals are in our favor, and that's what led to eventually a 100% movement in CAKE against not the US dollar but against BTC. Okay, let's calculate that movement from the very point that we enter all the way to the peak, more than 100%. Okay, 105% or thereabouts. Not to mention the monster movement that we've seen as of late in Ethereum Classic against BTC. Also, we had an entry as part of the methodology that I am teaching here. We had an explosion of volume at a time that we left behind, you guessed it, this critical level of resistance. Whenever this happens, this is communicating to us that we have all this wave of buyers pushing up, and eventually this led to not 100% but 3 times as much. Okay, I'm not saying that we have collected the profits to the very highest point of this run, notice 330%, but these type of movements are markets that you want to be part in. Okay, you do not want to be missing out on these outrageous movements. And also remember that whenever we have trades that do not work out, we are going to be very fast on cutting our losses. Okay, that's what really counts at the end of the day. Very important. FTT against BTC, another great trade that we had around that point. INJ BTC, this was a trade that we enter. Let me see if I can confirm the actual price. So we had a breakout initially right here. So let me show you the type of breakout that was. So notice that here we had several closes. We actually never could see price finding equilibrium beyond ever since that point in time. Eventually we had this huge candle, explosion of volume, a bit of a retracement because this candle was outsized. On that retracement we got in, and ever since it's been that one-way street that we always want to be looking out for, especially when we are in such a prime, in such an up season for the alts space. MKR BTC, another great example. I gotta say that breakout trades in the alts versus BTC have been working spectacularly well. We had a trade in the MKR right there in that candle. So notice that in that candle we started to see a little bit of decrease in volume, but through the previous candle, notice how much increase in volume we're having. And also one thing that is important, and what I emphasize also in the room, is price action itself. So we did have that volume that couldn't penetrate these previous highs. That candle came to its formation after we pushed lower first, and then we failed to find that confirmation or price closing back below. That means that this movement is not failing, it keeps actually moving in the favored direction, and that close right there to me is what makes it go full circle. Eventually MKR really going for an amazing run. Sol BTC, what to say about this trade? I have been documenting Sol for at least a month, ever since April, or 3 weeks, ever since April the 18th. And let me show you what I mean by saying that Sol has some very peculiar characteristics that really is one of a kind when it comes to a market that is supporting the narrative, the bullish narrative. Remember when we had the BTC liquidity event on April 18, the whole market collapsed, okay? Because that was a liquidity event that led to essentially players freaking out and wanting to go either back to cash temporarily or sitting also on Bitcoins when it comes to compare those Bitcoins against alts. And the Sol BTC printed a bullish outside candle at that point. This is a testament of a market that is incredibly bullish. Even when we had an event where Bitcoin dropped from 60,000 to almost 50,000, this chart printed a bullish candle. Outrageous. So ever since we have been in Sol BTC in a number of trades, that was the first one, and then we had an attempt to actually build higher highs right here. I was actually in this trade. Notice the candle that followed. Price action wise, this looks really poor, so I cut my exposure for a very minimal loss. So once again, emphasizing my point here, whenever I see the market communicating that things are not going in our direction, I get to square up and get to find other opportunities elsewhere, because the market has proved me wrong in that particular experiment. Whenever things go in our favor, we go for it. All right, let me see if I can find other trades. TRX, absolutely amazing trade here once again. As I've been telling you, one of the recurring patterns that we have been observing in our mentor room is that breakouts in the crypto space have been working a treat, and this TRX is once again proof in the pudding. Breakout, explosion in volume, retest, and we had a run that went for about 27 or 28%. Uni BTC is doing actually pretty quiet as of late, but we did have an entry right there. Notice the trigger line was pointing in the right, with the right slope. with all the market really communicating in terms of indicators that this was one that you want to be jumping on the bandwagon based on structure, momentum, and the familiar themes that I'm promoting. And last but not least, Monero. Monero has been laggard, has not been actually reacting as early as Litecoin, Cardano, but eventually we did see the breakout through this explosion, leaving behind this resistance, and it is finding that follow through. So there you have it. That's what we've been up to in the last few weeks. There has been a very aggressive shift in our approach. Now we are very much fully into the crypto space at times, and something that I tend to promote. It is one of my mottos, is that my focus will go where money flows, and it is clear to me that the crypto space is where all the alpha generation is available these days. If you want to give it a shot at my mentor room, remember that I have free trials available. If you actually have further follow-up questions, can drop in the comments below in this YouTube channel, or you might just reach out to me directly through our Discord room. The link is in the description down below. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.